2, 1. Panel, ladies and gentlemen, during times of despair and crisis, we need hope. We need hope to push us to fight and believe in a better tomorrow. And we believe that these ethno-nationalists serve as the antithesis to oppressive regimes and dictatorial structures. They have often led opposition parties to coalesce against dictators and their cronies. And we think that this is precisely why the glorification of these heroes is good. We recognize that these particular individuals are not perfect. They also have their own shortcomings. But we posit and we tell you that glorification uniquely puts them at a higher standard and serves as a check and balance later on against these individuals. That is precisely why in status quo, we have so much disappointment and even uproar against Aung San Suu Kyi, the point in which she started doing sketchy shit with the military junta and started being corrupt. We're able to hold them accountable and at a higher standard at the point in which they fail us or at the point in which we discover something about them. In the case of Russia, the reason why the Russian populace was so devastated when Navalny got assassinated was precisely because he stood as someone who could have done that battle against Putin, who could have taken him out. Before I move on to my extension, here are a few rebuttals against the previous speaker. The first is, they talked about how these individuals can now be targeted by the state and they now know where to look if they want to crush the hope of a democracy. But we think that on either side, these particular dictators and authoritarian individuals are already doing whack-a-mole, trying to harm people because they think that these people do not deserve human rights. That's why we can steal from them. That's why we can bomb them. That's why we can kill them. And we think that you need specifically a unifying individual to be able to hold these people together. Because if the previous speaker says then there can be another leader who can pop up, another person to be able to hold these people together, at what point will these individuals have any sense of identity, have any sense of purpose? That is why in the world we live in, we actually glorify the national heroes, ladies and gentlemen, who were the ultimate martyrs of our state, the ultimate martyr of our society. Because these are the very people who put themselves on the line to die for these particular causes. Is it going to be scary? Is it going to be dangerous? For sure. But these people already consent to those things and put them in a position to be strong. That is precisely why for every villain, you need the antithesis of a hero to be able to rally the people and to be able to show people that they can make an example. These people serve as an example. The second is in terms of, what then happens to the movement if they're lost? Because you can kind of flip what I'm saying and say, that's the point in which they start losing hope. We tell you no, right? Because oftentimes, even if you have a central figure, you have a rally of people behind them to actually plan and coalesce together to be able to form part of an opposition party. There is still going to be a level of hierarchy, and we think we actually do need a clear level of hierarchy within these organizations because people within the state often come from different minorities and different ethnicities. So even if you have, let's say, the ethno-nationalist majority who is serving as a leader, we think that under them, they also represent the banners of different particular individuals who also have different conciliating interests because these particular movements are not monolithic. Now, what is our case coming from opening opposition? I am going to tell you three things which are all related. The first is, why does it have to be through glorification that we actually forward these particular individuals? The second is, how does glorification uniquely lead to a stronger pro-democracy push? And I'm going to have a scenario analysis as to why, if you're successful, that's awesome, that's great. But even if you fail, it's still better to have someone who's glorified. And lastly, we're just going to talk about how it's better for hope and how this rallies people together in the hope of creating a unified national identity. So the first thing we have to understand is the nature of what's happening literally on the ground in these particular regimes. You often have people proliferating fake news. You often have people who are very scared and intimidated. What do we need? We need coverage and limelight, ladies and gentlemen. Later, I said in the chat, right? So we think that in order to shed light on this situation, meaning in order for the West and the media to actually give a shit and actually start doing things like giving you support, having coverage, etc., is exactly where you need someone to stand behind. Because if you don't have a unified leader or an individual, they see it as chaos and anarchy. They can say that shitty and squabbly movement is flimsy at best. They're probably not going to win, and they probably don't need our support because why should we be involved? In order to establish a sense of purpose and legitimacy, you need someone to be held accountable both by the people on the ground and the international community who provides media, who provides coverage, and who provides funding, whether it be fungible or not fungible. Go ahead, PY, OG, go for it.
What happens, do you think, if someone killed the living incarnation of Jesus Christ on the street? Would the Christians not have a lot more doubt in their faith?
Bro, all Christians and Catholics are gonna lose their shit. They're gonna go out onto the street trying to find that person accountable. It's only eventually a point in time where that person may actually be reborn or resurrected. But even if not, the point in which that emptiness lies is precisely where people continue to be angry and have hope and dissent against those oppressive structures. We recognize, yes, people will be emotional, people will be angry, but that can be productive. That props up militia, that props up these different coalition parties to try and hold these people accountable and actually fight, as opposed to being fragmented, as opposed to being lost, as opposed to not really understanding who we are and who we stand for. That's why leadership and organization is so important. Ultimately, ladies and gentlemen, we need a unifying individual to serve as an example, an exemplar against what we stand for, in order to hold us all together to believe and fight for a better tomorrow. We are very proud to open First Flash.